Hello. Welcome, UC Santa Cruz students and alumni. We thank you for tuning in today for our webinar, 10 Job Search Tips During Coronavirus. For today's session, we will be diving into the topic of how to tailor your job search during this time of coronavirus. My name is Cara Snyder, and I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement at UC Santa Cruz. I'm also an alumnus. This program is offered in collaboration between the Career Success and Alumni Engagement teams at UC Santa Cruz as part of our increased efforts to bring career supporting and virtual events to our students and alumni. We aim to equip you with information, insights, and connections necessary to launch, grow, or expand your careers. After today's event, I hope that you'll fill out the survey to provide feedback on the event and future offerings that you want to see from us. We're excited to hear your thoughts on what we can do to help support your career and professional development. Throughout today's session, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions in the Q&A box on your Zoom. We'll spend about 40 minutes of the presentation and about 20 minutes of Q&A. We'll try and answer as many questions as possible today during the event, and this event is being recorded and will be available on the Career Success YouTube channel later this week. So you'll be able to watch it later. So now I'd like to introduce our fantastic speaker, Oscar Garcia, founder and Chief Empowerment Officer at Aspira Consulting, a company he founded in 2015 with one mission: to empower you so opportunities come to you. Oscar is an alumnus of UC Berkeley and passionate about supporting UC students and alumni. Oscar's career journey includes business development roles at 5 startups, co-founding a nonprofit, serving as chamber president and CEO, and roles at and developing community partnerships at LinkedIn. So we're thrilled that Oscar is here with us today. And with that, I'd like to turn things over to Oscar.
All right, good. Okay, let's see here. All right, and there we go. Okay, hi everyone. Hello. Let me just switch screens here and share my PowerPoint. There we go. Can you see it, Cara? Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
Sure can.
Awesome. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Cara, thank you very much for the wonderful introduction and to the entire Career Services team and Alumni Engagement for inviting me. I am, again, a UC alumni from Berkeley. I live in Mountain View, so I didn't go very far. And after I graduated from college, came back to Mountain View. And, today I'm going to talk about, just like it says, 10 job search tips to help you out during this time right now. Also, I want you to understand that where I'm going to be coming from is from the perspective of, I didn't watch a video, I didn't read, some book on how to do, career searching and find your next opportunity. I'm actually, to this day, doing what I teach you, because the other part of my business, I do consulting work. And so I go from project to project. And while most job seekers, right, you find a job and hopefully you stay there for a number of years. And with the consulting work, it could last 1 month, 3 months, 6 months. That means I'm going from one gig to the other. And I have just been, I know how to market myself. And again, the things that I'm going to teach you come from that perspective. The other thing too is I'm going to come to you from the perspective of an introvert. Because yes, I know many of you don't believe me, but my natural personality is an introvert. I don't like sales. I don't like begging a company to hire me. I'd rather be in a position where that opportunity comes to me. So again, I'm going to leave plenty of time afterwards to answer any questions for you. Okay, so there are 3 main topics that I'm going to cover. First off, I'm going to talk about embracing fear. We are definitely in some unprecedented times. Back in '92, when I graduated a long time ago from Cal, there was a recession, but it certainly doesn't compare to today. In 2008, when I took over as the head of the local chamber of commerce, again, we were in another recession. Today, everyone is being impacted, and in this some scary times, I'm going to talk about ways that we can embrace this uncertainty. Number two, I'm going to talk about how you can look at and identify what I refer to as some of the silver lining right now. And then lastly, obviously, I'm going to get into the job search tips. First off, fear. Really, Oscar? Like, what do you mean embracing fear? I mean, most of us, I mean, I do, I run away from fear. Imagine if my house right now was on fire. I mean, then the smart thing to do was get the heck out of the house because, hey, right? Danger. Yet, what do firefighters do? They are running to my address, hopefully to put the fire out, okay, and save whatever personal belongings. They are running into fear while I'm running away from fear. And so that's what I mean in terms of learning how to embrace our feelings or this fear. Now, more specifically, this is what I mean. Number one, I want you to be flexible. Some of you have majored, in areas that obviously, hopefully, you're very passionate about, and right now, their companies aren't hiring for your major, and so I encourage you to be flexible in terms of looking at other opportunities out there. Sometimes we think that because we take one step back, that's a bad thing. No, sometimes we actually do need to take one step back so that later on we can take two steps forward. So be flexible, embrace change. Okay, we hear this a lot. I mean, the older we get, typically we kind of get set in our ways. I just turned 51 last month, and I do some of these job search, career training seminars for folks that are 40 and older, and a lot of them, especially here in Silicon Valley, have worked in the tech industry, but unfortunately, they didn't continue to grow and change and embrace new technology, et cetera, and so forth. So always be embracing that change. Number three, aspire. Don't settle, folks. Don't settle, okay? You got your degree. Congratulations. I am proud of you, okay? You should be proud of it. But you know what? This is now the time for you to continue to aspire for more. Always looking for to achieve more. And then lastly, focus also on the results. If what you're doing in your job search isn't working, stop doing that. Analyze, figure it out. What is going on? When I was at Berkeley, I was in remedial English class my freshman year, first semester, right? And I was getting, honestly, the truth, D's on my papers. And I needed to figure out, like, oh my gosh, I at least need to get a C minus in order to pass this class. So, I focused on those results, got some help, etc. This is what I mean by embracing fear. So be flexible, embrace change, always be aspiring, don't settle, and focus on the results. And I'm going to get into a little more specifics on some of these areas. Okay, with regards to looking at the silver lining right now, there is, folks, okay, so some positive out there. This is what I mean, okay? First of all, listen, we all go through challenges, right? Challenges stink, okay? But they can also be the fertilizer to our dreams. How we react to the circumstances, okay, is our choice. I worked in the tech industry for 12 years, all startups. Every year and a half, I was getting laid off. Yes, that stunk. It was horrible. I was recently married, small. My kids were young, so obviously I was nervous, anxiety, financial pressure, and all that type of stuff. But I was able to take some of that positive from that situation to help me move forward. Now, this is what I mean in terms of looking for that fertilizer. What I want you to do, not right now, later, go watch the replay of this, okay? But I want you to do is pull out a piece of paper or whatever your laptop, whatever you feel comfortable, and I want you to take an inventory of all the skills that you have. And when I say take an inventory of all the skills that you have, I don't mean that you consider yourself really good or an expert on those skills. Like budgeting, okay? For me, that is a skill that I have. It's not my favorite thing, probably not the best person. I'm not an accountant or anything like that, but I would put it there and come up with a list of, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 50 skills. Just do an inventory dump on a piece of paper. Next, grab another piece of paper, and I want you to write 3 columns on that paper. On the left, up in the top, say life experiences. The middle, your feelings. And then on the right, your skills. And what I want you to do is I want you to start thinking about some life experiences that maybe weren't very pleasant. Okay. And I'm going to use myself as an example. Growing up in elementary school, fifth grade, one day all of a sudden, my parents are like, hey, you know what? My dad was a butcher in Mexico. And all of a sudden he was like, hey, we're going to go, on the weekends to the slaughterhouses, kill a pig, cow, and we're going to sell fresh meat. And they did it totally illegal. Okay. No health permit. As a kid, I was embarrassed about that. Okay. I didn't tell my friends that we did that. I was embarrassed. I'm like, oh, my friends don't want to know that I'm over there gutting a pig or whatever. That's like disgusting. Right. And so that was my life experience, family business. How did I feel? I felt embarrassed. And see, when I say your feelings, this is what going back about embracing these, sometimes with kind of these ugly feelings that we're experiencing, right? Like maybe right now. Because I'm not here one to tell you folks that suck it up. You shouldn't feel down, come on, No, those are your feelings. And I have no right to tell you not to feel that. And so go ahead and experience those feelings, embrace those, kind of yucky feelings. But then what I want you to do is I want you to think back of a skill that you learned from that experience. And in my case, I learned a work ethic. At 11 years old, most of my friends on Saturday morning at 7 I was waking up at 7 a.m. to go help my parents in their business while most of my friends were watching cartoons. That's why, for example, in these last 6 weeks that we've been in shelter in place, I've been hustling indoors. I haven't been binge watching Netflix and whatever else that most people are doing. No, because I have a work ethic. Okay. I've been busting my rear end, pivoting my business. Next, I told you earlier when I was at Berkeley, remedial English class, right? How did I feel? I felt inferior. Here I am, 30,000 students at UC Berkeley. All I saw was 30,000 brains with 2 legs, and I was not one of those smart kids. But what did I learn? I learned how to be coachable because I told you I kept going out there getting some help. When I worked in the tech industry, as I said, I got frequent layoffs. How did I feel? Again, anxiety. But I learned how to network. And then when I started that nonprofit with family and friends, young family, like I said, I felt like I didn't have any time. All right. But what is a skill that I learned from that experience? Public speaking. And then lastly, working at the Chamber of Commerce. Okay. I didn't even know what a Chamber of Commerce did. My competition had 25 years of chamber experience, was the interim chamber CEO, and the board loved her. And here comes Oscar Garcia, doesn't have a clue what a Chamber of Commerce does. And how did I feel? Unqualified for that opportunity, but I got hired. And what is the skill that I learned there? I learned how to collaborate. So those are what I mean by finding that fertilizer. It's in our life experiences, okay? That sometimes we think of it as a negative and we don't look back and like, you know what, actually there's some positive that came out of, there's some fertilizer that came out of that. Now, the last thing that I want you to do is, again, grab another blank piece of paper, and I want you to write 3 columns. On the left is going to be your top skills, the middle, your values, and then lastly, your purpose. Now, with the top skills, remember in the very beginning, I told you to do an inventory of your skills. Once you do that, I want you to go back to that inventory list of your skills and highlight, circle the top 10 skills that you are really good at and you love doing, okay? To go back, I mentioned budgeting, okay? Yes, I can do it, but I don't love doing budgeting, so I would not circle that. And then you write those, like I have it here on the screen. And once you've done that, you then kind of do some mapping here. So for example, in my case, being creative, I love that, okay? For me, some people, they don't like, kind of like I love making videos and social media posts. I do them all myself, okay? For me, that's just kind of relaxing, might sound kind of weird, but I love it. And so creativity is a skill that I have. What's a value? Change. Why do I do it? Because I love inspiring. If you follow me on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, or whatever, you'll notice that my content, almost the majority of my content, I'm creative with it. And the reason why I create that content to be inspirational is because I like that ability to kind of always be changing. And I view creativity as a way to always look at how to get that message out. So again, that change in inspiring others. Okay. Now that you've done that foundation, let's get into some of these job search tips, okay? I really, really encourage you to do those exercises that I mentioned, because 98% of you, you just want me to get into the, hey, should I fill out a resume, Oscar? And should my resume have, these little bars, and how many bars, et cetera? You guys, that is not the important thing. It's getting that foundation down that is critical in your job search, okay? So number one, I want you to put together what I refer to as your rally dream team. This is what I mean. I want you to identify 5 people in your sphere of influence, okay? One is a mentor, okay? We all know what a mentor is. Number 2, a promoter. A promoter is someone that knows your skill set, knows what you're looking for, and is keeping an eye out for opportunities. I just, about 20 minutes before logging onto this webinar, I got an email from someone and that wants me to do some executive mentorship coaching. And the email says, Oscar, so-and-so recommended you to me. That's what I mean by a promoter, okay? A connector. A connector is someone that also, again, knows you, knows your personality, et cetera, and so forth, and maybe connects you with another person. Hey, Oscar, you know what? Meet John over here. John, meet Oscar. You guys kind of share similar values, et cetera, and kind of connects you like that. Not necessarily promoting an opportunity. It's just who you are as a person brings 2 people together. A close friend. Now, we all know what a close friend is, okay? But I'm going to give you the OG, okay? The Oscar Garcia version of what a close friend is. First of all, a close friend is not someone that says, Oscar, if you love it, I love it too. No, because if I'm, walking down this path and I'm going to fall off the cliff, I want that close friend to be, Oscar, like slap me over the face or something, like stop, because you're going to injure yourself. That's what I mean by a close friend. And then lastly, a coach. A coach is someone that is in the game, that is doing, maybe the type of work that you want to do, or in the industry that you're in, and so has, that knowledge right now. The difference between a mentor and a coach, a mentor used to, might have been in your industry, but no longer is. Maybe they're retired or whatever. Whereas again, a coach is in that industry or in that job that you're interested. Now, if you do not have these 5 people, and you know what? I don't have all these 5 people at this moment. Don't worry about it. Go out there and find these people. Now, sometimes people ask me, Oscar, how do I find a mentor? How do I find a coach? Yes, like I told you, I'm an introvert, okay? So and I don't like to complicate things. It's just stick your hand out. Hi, John, I'm Oscar Garcia. I follow you on LinkedIn, or we're connected. I admire what you're doing, the work that you're doing. Hey, we'd love to ask you some questions about your career journey. It's just taking that little baby step to start developing the relationship. Don't overcomplicate it, folks. Next, I want you to inform your network. If you're actively right now looking for employment, this is not the time to be humble, okay? It is a time for you to let the world know. Typically, I would tell people don't go out there and be broadcasting it. But right now, we're in the time, we need to. It's kind of like this, okay? If someone is out on the Pacific Ocean drowning, you don't bring him to shore or anything like that and be like, hey, is it okay? And no, you throw the rope and then you bring him to shore, figure out what's going on. You need to be very proactive about this and letting your network know on social media, start reaching out to your friends, et cetera, and so forth. Number 3, very important too as well, is I want you to start working and getting your career story down. The reason why this is important is because as you are reaching out to people, people are going to ask you, what are you looking for? What's your experience, et cetera, and so forth. And if you come across kind of wishy-washy, because typically this is what happens, right? I ask people okay, so what are you looking for? Well, I'm looking to work in, as a network engineer and, maybe in a tech company, a startup, but I'm also interested in the finance industry. And they tell me 4 or 5 different industries and different, I mean, hey, listen, nothing wrong if you are like that, okay, that you wanted to expand, but my brain can't hold all that information. So when I talk to someone and they're looking for someone that is related to your industry, I'm probably not going to remember you because there's too many things to remember versus if you're just more kind of specific. Now, let me help you out here in terms of creating your story, your career story. Number 1, identify and talk about your why. Why are you interested in doing that type of work? Why do you want to work in that particular industry, company, etc.? And in this case, the why that I'm referring to is what's in it for that employer, what's in it for that industry. For example, my personal why I do what I do is because I love helping people dream bigger. I love inspiring them. I love serving them. But my why as it relates to you or a company when I'm doing consulting company is I empower you so opportunities come to you. That's the difference. Number two, who are you? By this, I'm talking about what are some of your personality traits? If you look at my LinkedIn profile under the About section, you'll see that I list some of my personality traits, okay? And then number three, that's where you talk about your career journey, what you've been doing up to this point. And if you want to pivot into a new industry, talk about where you want to go. And also your vision. For those of you that are young professionals or those of you that are young at heart like me, okay, and you're looking to transition into a new industry, selling your vision is very, very critical and important, okay? Let me show you an example here. This is an example of Angelica, who wants to be a college professor. And in her LinkedIn section, she says, I'm a master's student at San Jose State University who aspires to one day become a professor of ethnic studies. My goal as a future educator is to help create an engaging, creative, and strong educational foundation for future generations. My passion for education has been an ongoing cause that has led me to volunteer for organizations such as Mesa de la Comunidad and Aspira. By pursuing my passion for academia, I hope to expand my horizons and gain more insight into a world of limitless possibilities. She answers those questions that I just mentioned before. She obviously has zero experience being a college professor, but she's selling her vision. And for those of you, again, young professionals that are just getting started in your career, this is how you sell yourself, okay? This is how you explain the lack of experience that you have. If you want to look at a profile, again, my profile in terms of how I do it, okay, for someone like myself that has almost 30 years of experience and has 11 career transitions, different industries, how I'm able to be concise, look me up on LinkedIn and read my About section so you can see how someone like myself does it. Number four, put together a target list of companies. Folks, stop applying online just randomly. Companies like Indeed, Glassdoor, LinkedIn, they make it so easy for people to just click, submit your resume. First of all, I'm going to tell you something, okay? Statistics say that you have a 3% chance of getting an interview if you apply online, but you have a 91% chance of getting hired. I said 91% chance of getting hired if the person that refers you to the opportunity is at a director level or higher. Yeah. Okay. The challenge is most of us don't know how to network. Okay. That's why, we're afraid to reach out to someone. When I look back at my experience at that career transition from tech to the chamber, the person that referred me and was my champion, my advocate, my promoter was on the board of the chamber. And if you know anything, the way chambers are organized, the board is the boss of the CEO. So put together that target list of companies of 10 to 20, do your research on those companies, find out obviously, what do they do? How are they right now being impacted by the coronavirus? What does their future look like? So that you can really figure out, like, is this really a company that I want to work for, an industry that I want to work for? And if the answer is yes, when you go into the interview, you are going to be a lot more prepared with more information, insight for that interview. Next, I want you to have an entrepreneur mindset with your job search. Now, I'm not talking about that you need to be a business owner, okay? No, but just think like an entrepreneur. What do I mean by that? This is what I mean. I want you to be a problem solver. Folks, at the end of the day, companies have, yes, they have a position that's open, but they have a problem. In other words, there's a reason why they need to fill that position. And you need to communicate that you understand their need, their problem. And what I encourage you to do is actually put together what I call a value proposition proposal, okay? Where in that proposal, you're talking about, again, I understand your industry, I understand the company, and within the first 90 days, this is what I'm going to bring to the party. And the first 30 days, I'm going to do this, 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 and that. And the next 60 days, I'm going to do this, this, and that. And the next 90 days, I'm going to do this, 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 and that. The reason I'm telling you this takes effort. I get it. It really does. But see, most people don't do this. And when you do come in and provide that to a company, either before or during the interview, you're going to blow their mind. I'm telling you, folks, the things that I'm telling you how to do are completely different from most 98% of the job seekers. I do this, okay? I do this even in my consulting work. Next, start conducting some informational interviews. Start reaching out to people to ask them some questions, again, about their industry, et cetera, and so forth. Now, when you are doing these informational interviews, use some judgment. In some cases, you might want to, right off the bat, have your resume or whatever, ready. In some cases, it's strictly just informational, okay? But this is a great way to gain insight on the industry, to gain insight on the to be building your network, et cetera. And remember earlier I told you about putting together kind of your dream team. Some of these people that you do these informational interviews can result in them being part of that dream team that I mentioned. Next, video resumes, especially being shelter in place. This is something that I think we're going to be seeing more, but it's also a great way for you in a very short, concise way to share your experience and also let recruiters, hiring managers, just other people that might refer you into your personality, right? Because folks, again, if there are two people that are of equal, skill set, et cetera, and so forth, oftentimes the company's going to go with someone that better matches the company culture. And so with the video resume, people see your personality. Like right now, I mean, you're looking at me and you're like, man, how many Red Bulls does that guy have? 0, okay? But like, right? Versus if I just like emailed you the PowerPoint or, if we were just over the phone or something like conference call, Now, here are some tips for video resume. Number 1, keep it concise. 60 to 90 seconds, okay? 60 to 90 seconds, really short. The video resume, it is not meant to get you hired. It is meant to get a call, the actual interview, okay? So don't overthink it either. Talk about the who, what, and why of you, and then have a call to action. What do you want people to do after they watch your video resume? Do you want them to click on your personal website? Do you want them to, click on your LinkedIn profile? Do you want them to, maybe you have Calendly, that you use, and do you want people to schedule an appointment with you? Whatever, have a call to action. Number 3, practice, practice, practice. Folks, this is not natural for me, okay, to be talking on a little camera here. I just practice a lot. And, maybe what you can do, get a free Zoom account. You can get up to I think 40 minutes or something for free. Call up a buddy and hey, you know what, let's practice here, me doing that interview, with the camera or whatever type of thing. And then lastly, upload and tag your video resume on social media. And when I say tag, think about certain people in your network that can help promote your video resume, or maybe it's a hiring manager or a recruiter that you can tag them in your post. And then lastly, use certain hashtags that are appropriate for the industry that you want to work in. And then lastly, of course, share the post everywhere. Virtual interviews. This is another thing, okay? Another area that help us, that we're seeing a lot. And I think we're gonna see this even more, even after, things quote unquote go back to normal. Some tips on the virtual interview. Again, practice, 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 practice. Make sure you test your equipment, the app, et cetera, and so forth. Before every webinar, I log in at least minimum 15, sometimes 30 minutes before. Just make sure we test all the equipment, everything is working just fine. The logistics matter, okay? I've seen webinars, people where, in the background you see, their clothes in their closet or whatever, with Zoom and some of the other apps, you can put some background, which is kind of cool, and so forth. Lighting is critical as well. I actually adjusted right now my camera and so forth so that the lighting from the living room window is hitting me. Otherwise, if I flipped it around the other way, I'd be really dark. Background matters. focus on the camera, okay? You can even maybe draw a little picture of a face of someone and put it kind of on your camera if it helps you, excuse me, focus more on watching the camera. And then take some notes. And then lastly, don't forget this, okay? I know it seems common sense, but always reach out and give thanks to folks after the interview. All right, number 9, virtual networking. You can do a lot of networking even right now, shelter in place. In fact, for me, almost half of my network now starts online, and it might go offline. And when I say go offline, I don't mean necessarily, you know, face to face. It could be over the phone and so forth. And hey, those of us that are introverts, I'm in heaven, you know, virtual networking. I prefer that better, okay? But let me give you some examples here of some virtual networking. On Eventbrite, you can do Meetup too as well. But if you go onto Eventbrite and you search webinars, there are free webinars there. If you want to pay, that's fine. But there are free webinars. Find webinars related to your areas of interest. I don't know, mindfulness, yoga, meditation, whatever. And when you log on to these webinars, sometimes the webinars will list the screen, right, of the people that are participating. And you know what? In that situation, man, I would be looking up people on LinkedIn or social media. Wow, you know, who knows? Maybe all of a sudden, you know, John Smith that works at Google, I look him up and they're like a recruiter. I would then send him a LinkedIn invitation. Hey, John, you and I were both on, you know, this mindfulness webinar, you know, yesterday. I see you work at Facebook. Would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. And that, again, that's a way to network, and it's a way to start building and nourishing those relationships, because later on, maybe I ask them some specific questions. It could lead to an informational interview. So this is an example of how you can do some virtual networking. And then lastly, folks, and I'm going to open it up to some questions here. Folks, remember I told you earlier about focusing on the results? You need to have some realistic effort, put in some realistic effort in your job search. About 3 weeks ago, I was talking to someone. He reached out to me and he's like, oh, Oscar, you know, like no one's responding to my informational interview requests and so forth. And I said, well, how many people have reached out? You know, like last week, maybe like 12. I'm like, 12? I said, listen, let's just use the 80-20 rule, okay? And let's say 20% of those 12 people actually reach back out to you, you know, like, hey, what's up? I said, that is like 2 people, maybe 3. And of those people, how many do you think will lead to an actual interview or a job offer? You see where I'm going with this, folks? We're kidding. He was kidding himself. Like, he's not putting in the effort. Some of you are doing the same thing. You're banging your head up because, oh, you're frustrated. And you're, quite frankly, the effort that you're putting out doesn't match the results that you're getting. Or actually, to put it a different way, it actually is matching the results because you're not putting much effort. So therefore, you're not getting much results. So let me help you out. Let's just say the first scenario. I have 2 scenarios for you. First scenario, let's say you have a 20% success ratio. What do I mean? So if your goal is to get 2 job offers and your percentage from final round to 2 offers is 50%, that means you need 4 final round offers, okay? Now, this is where the 20% comes in. First round interviews, what does that mean? That means you need 20 first round interviews, 20% of that, right, is 4, okay? How many informational interviews do you need to do to get that? 100. How many people do you need to email? 500. You need to reach out to 500 people in order to get 2 offers. Now that seems like a lot, right? It is. Let's take this up. Let's say your ratio is 30% better, okay? And let's just keep, again, final round to your goal of 2 offers. It's still 50%. But from there, you would need 15 first round interviews, 50 informational interviews that you would need to do, and you would need to reach out to roughly about 170 people, okay, in order for you to get those 2 offers. That's still, for many of you, especially as an introvert, like, oh my God, like, really, Oscar? Like, I only have 2 friends, you know, myself and I, that's it. Okay, let's break this down on how many people you need to reach out on a daily basis. I'm going to give you the weekends off. Let's just take a work month, 20 days. You got the weekends off, you're going to reach out. If you need to reach out to 500 people, that means on a daily basis, Monday through Friday, you need to email, text, however it is you reach out to these people, 25 people a day. If your success ratio is 30%, then that's about 8 to 9 people a day. See, that is more manageable. Okay. So again, I share this with you so that you look at your effort and the results that you're getting. If you're not getting the results, you need to put a more realistic effort into this. All right. I'm going to open it up to some questions. Folks, just let on the chat know if this webinar was helpful, the content that I've shared with you. But before I do that, I do want to let you know that this Friday, I am doing a free webinar, 5 ways to get noticed by recruiters on LinkedIn. On the bottom right, you see the date, 12 to 1. I did share the link with Cara and the team, but you can also connect with me on LinkedIn if you want, or you can find this on Eventbrite and register for the webinar. Here is my phone number. You can text me, you can email me if you're, again, a super introvert like myself and you want to check out my website, go check out my website first as well. But Cara, we'll open it up to some questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Oscar. I learn something new every time I hear you present, and thank you for providing all of this engaging information today. So I'm going to go with our first question from Jasmine. How would someone approach writing a proposition proposal, and can it apply across all industries?
Yes. So reach out to me. Send me you have my email address, and I will send you a template of the proposal. But it starts off by, as I mentioned earlier, doing your homework, researching on the opportunity, the company, the industry, the position, and then, like I mentioned earlier, there is a format that I use where I talk about kind of what the purpose is, purpose of the opportunity, et cetera. And then talk a little bit about the industry that they're in, kind of what I've learned. And then after that, in those 30, 60, 90 days, I will then discuss some of the things that I can bring, the value that I can bring to that position. And it is what is meant. I mean, you're using your professional knowledge, your research skills, and obviously tailoring it to what you can bring to the party. And it's meant really to showcase a really good understanding of the opportunity and to let the interviewers know your skill set as well. I mean, you're not going to nail it down 100%, et cetera, and so forth. But it is, like I said earlier, I do this all the time. It does impress people.
Great. Thank you, Oscar. Okay, next question, we're going to go from Daniel. What's the difference between making your goal getting a second interview and making your goal getting hired in a second interview? Did I get that right?
So let's see if I understand the question. So the goal is to get hired. Okay, that's the goal. If you can do it in a shorter period of time, awesome. Okay. The example that I shared in terms of reaching out to people, informational interviews, et cetera, that is more of the traditional route or path that tends to happen. But I've been in situations where, hey, one meeting, we're good to go. I mean, if you can do that, hey, if you can hit a grand slam every time you go up to bat, you're going to be, high in demand. Typically, it doesn't work that way. And so just be prepared to kind of know what the process is as well.
Great. Okay, this next question comes from Victoria. If you don't recommend looking for jobs online, where do you recommend looking for jobs? And I think just to clarify what Oscar said is don't apply online. You can certainly look for jobs online. And so how do we go about finding jobs in person or online? Any advice there?
Yeah, so that's correct. It's a clarification is applying online. Now, let me clarify that a little more. Okay, there are definitely certain industries, education industry, government, and maybe nonprofit, where and even some tech companies where you do have to, apply online. So don't take it as a blanket, like never apply online. No, no, no. What I'm saying is, remember that dream team that I talked about? Make sure that you are putting time and effort. In fact, if it was me, I would put more time and effort in putting that team together, because A, maybe they can save me some time from having to apply online, okay? Or B, maybe I still have to apply online, but then someone in the organization says, you know what, Oscar, just go ahead and apply online. I'll keep an eye out on your resume, and I'll make sure to hand deliver it, or go to the recruiter or the hiring manager, HR, whomever it is, and let them know. That's what I'm talking about. What happens is people don't do this networking, building relationships, and they strictly rely online only, and hence the 3% chance of only getting an interview.
Awesome, great. So this next question comes from Jerry, who is actually one of our undergraduate major advisors here at UCSC. And I like this question because it comes from a mentorship mindset. His question is, how do you best instill confidence and motivation to graduating seniors? But I'm going to extend that to, how do you best instill confidence and motivation into those you mentor during the job hunt in these challenging times of fiscal retrenchment?
Yeah, there's a couple ways that I encourage to do that. Number one, that exercise that I mentioned earlier in the beginning about, looking for fertilizer and so forth. It has helped me, and it's helped other people that I've mentored, to really look back and find that positive in some of life's challenges. Okay, like I said, that silver lining, and find that positive, but also to be able to tell it from a story, from a position of strength, of a lesson learned. So that's one way. The other way is by me sharing some of my challenges and how I've overcome some of those challenges. If you follow me on social media, especially even on LinkedIn, because most people treat LinkedIn like a very stuffy, professional, right, platform. I share, I'm very vulnerable on LinkedIn. Some of the stories that I share, I just shared two days ago, Sunday, a story about my mother coming to the US as an undocumented immigrant, and what that meant. But I shared some of the lessons that I learned from my mother, of her making that huge sacrifice. And so what happens is, I notice people read that relate to it, and they're like, wow, if this guy can do it, I can do it too. So that's another way that I encourage you to do it. Share your story.
Thank you. Yeah, stories are really important in all industries and connection levels. So the next question comes from Autumn. You touched on the value of being able to showcase one's personality because employers are interested in that. But how do we balance and market our personality in the way that employers want to see it?
Yeah. So Audrey, I think you said her name. So Audrey, love that question. Here's the thing. First of all, I want you to know that yes, companies have their own culture, company culture, values, really, and so do you. And you are not going to be a fit for every opportunity out there. For example, okay, Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, those are great companies. I worked at LinkedIn, okay? But personally, I don't like working for a big company. Why? Because for me, on a personal level, I don't like the bureaucracy. Nothing wrong with it or anything like that. It's just me personally. So therefore, what are the chances, of me coming across, right? Like I really want to work in a big bureaucratic organization? Pretty slim. And if I do, I'm not going to be happy. So what I realized is that looking for an opportunity, it's like in a relationship, there has to be a match. Because when you're trying to force it, okay, to go work at a company just because they provide free lunch or whatever, it's the hip company of the decade right now, that's not the right way. You need to know your worth, know your values, and find an opportunity, a company that matches yours. Because in the long run, you're going to be a lot happier too.
True. Okay, our next question comes from Melissa. Do all companies look at LinkedIn, and how important is a LinkedIn profile?
I don't know if all companies look at LinkedIn. I will tell you this, and again, statistics say that about 94% of recruiters are on LinkedIn, okay, using it, okay, to find candidates. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, monster.com was the place. Who knows, 5 years, 10 years down the road, if LinkedIn will still be the place, okay, where employers go to. But right now, that's the platform, so I would be on that platform. LinkedIn, not only is it important to find an opportunity, but it's also a way for you to market yourself, or in this case, your brand, to showcase your brand. And really, quite frankly, in my opinion, that is the best way to do it, because like I mentioned earlier, my goal is to teach people how to market themselves. So that they're not looking for work, and instead a recruiter or hiring manager comes to them and says, "Hey, man, like just like that email that I told you earlier, I heard you're really good at this. Can you help me?" Like, that's the position that you want to be in. And LinkedIn right now is the platform that allows us to do that.
Thank you, Oscar. I have to say my connections and my opportunities exploded once I really dedicated some time to utilizing the tool.
Yes.
Okay, our next question is from Caitlin. How can we best distinguish which companies are actually hiring and which job positions are on hold? I've noticed a lot of companies are unsure if they will still be hiring for specific positions during the shelter in place.
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways to do it. On LinkedIn, when you log into LinkedIn and you go up to the search bar, I'm talking about the desktop version, okay? On the upper left, and you type in hiring, you're gonna see, and you filter it by people, okay? You're gonna see that oftentimes companies that are hiring, the people at those companies, like the recruiter, wherever, not always, but a lot of times they'll put hiring in there. And that is a great way to start sorting and identifying companies that are hiring. Play around with the filter, because you can even adjust the filter even more to specific geographic region, specific company, industry, et cetera, and so forth. So that's one way. The other is that, again, if you email me, happy to send you a link that I came across, I bookmarked it, of companies that are either hiring right now or that have laid off. And it's not 100% accurate, but it's user updated. And it's a great list, just on a Google Doc, Excel, whatever sheet. And that's another place that you can go to.
Thanks, Oscar. Okay, this next question came in, I think, from email or registration. I'm currently trying to get a last-minute summer internship after my summer plans were canceled. How can I apply these networking guidelines as somebody that doesn't have any significant work history to build off of?
Yeah, networking is going to be your key here, because what you need to do is you need to get people to listen to your story, because you do have a story. I doubt that you just sat all semester or whatever quarter system, just binge watching whatever, Tiger King or whatever, okay? You have a story to tell. And if you compete strictly on your resume, you're not going to get very far, okay? So the networking. Now, having said that, what I also encourage you to do is set up some job alerts, okay? Google actually is a great place to do that. Log in with your Gmail account, type in Google Jobs, not Google Jobs as in jobs at the company. There is a feature that Google has where you can set up certain criteria of the type of jobs that you're looking for, industry, location. I mean, it gets really specific. And then once you save that search, have it send you alerts, however frequently you want, into your inbox. And then what happens is Google goes to LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor, and a bunch of these other job boards. And in one place, you have a list of companies. And then apply some of the things that I mentioned earlier, researching, building that network, et cetera, and so forth.
Oh, I was muted. Back on. Thanks, Oscar. So this next question, I think this is a concern that a lot of people have who've already been out in the job market. And you touched on it a little bit earlier when you talked about identifying your skills so that you can apply them to positions that are open right now. But with social distancing in place, how do we identify, and how can we find the jobs that we can get hired for right now? And then on top of that, how do we deal with other things like childcare? So it's a really complex time for us. It's really complex problems we're trying to solve. Can you speak more to that, to finding the opportunities with shelter in place?
Yeah. So some of this, the answer to this question, also the answer that I gave earlier, as far as like places to go to, you can find that information. And same thing, email me, I'll send you that link that I mentioned. But there's a couple things here. It is, in addition to the networking, what I encourage you to do um, is two things. One, like for example, on LinkedIn, social media in general, post what you just asked me, post that as a question. Like for example, if you do it on LinkedIn, okay, I know it's a little scary, like what? I'm gonna tell people, that this is happening. But see, here's the thing. One, it is vulnerable and it does take some courage to put that out there. But here's the other thing. That question, it's a very realistic question that many people are going through right now that I bet you would resonate with a lot of people. And so what happens is, not only are you going to get answers to that question on LinkedIn, but also what happens is now you got people coming to you that you can potentially use to network, or maybe they can refer you to an opportunity. So it's that sharing, being that vulnerable, okay, with that question. The other thing is that I looked at, many of your, I don't know the person here who's answered it, but many of you, your LinkedIn profile. And one of the things that almost every single one of you is not doing is you are not engaged with the platform. And engage is either liking a post, commenting on a post, or sharing content. And when you don't do any of those three things, the algorithm, first of all, doesn't favor you because it doesn't consider you as an active user, but your network doesn't see you, that top of mind, you're not there, okay? And so I would also encourage you to be active on the platform, doing either one of those two things, like, comment, or share a post.
Okay. Next question comes from Sebastian. How much time should we spend developing skills while we're on the job hunt?
Sebastian, that's really more up to you. I don't know your situation, right? If you are working right now, you're not working right now, but I'll tell you this, okay? For me, I spend roughly about 30 minutes a day, just in the morning when I wake up, listening either to a podcast or something positive, or something with regards to my industry, training, speaking. And I do it, I'm a lazy reader, okay? So I do audiobooks, or I got my Bluetooth speaker. And then when I'm showering and I'm getting ready in the morning to walk from my bedroom to my kitchen, okay, I listen to that. And that 30 minutes, okay, in the last almost 4 years, I have listened to about 70 audiobooks. Okay. Now, some people say, well, Oscar, if you're listening to books, like, what is your retention? I don't know. Maybe it's 10%, but it's more than your zero, right? It's like we use that as an excuse. So even something like that, it's that habit and that consistency that will help you. So you figure out what you're comfortable. I don't care if it's 2 minutes. Okay. But just be consistent over time, increase it a little more.
Good advice. Just a little bit at a time. I love podcasts too. I learned so much.
Yes.
Okay, our next question comes from Monica. If I'm interested in a specific position open at a small size company, is it appropriate to ask for an informational interview from someone working at that company? I'm worried about seeming too presumptuous.
No, it's not. It's okay. Go for it. It's all how we go about asking. That's the key thing, okay? And so it goes back. So, for example, it's not just LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the good place. You can type in, look up that person, and see if you share any mutual connections. But you can also go on other social media platforms as well. The key thing is, if you do have a mutual connection, have that mutual connection make an introduction for you, because it's that warm introduction makes it a lot better. And then you reach out to the person. If you don't, then that's where, you know, that value proposition that I mentioned and how you're going about initially crafting your email. I mean, obviously I don't have time to get into the nitty-gritty details, but I do have some examples of the way you can craft a message to someone to increase the chances. There's no 100% guarantee. And then at the end of the day too, you have to feel good about yourself of how you go about it. If you approached it with a good heart and you were professional about it and you still get rejected, sleep good. Because just like on this webinar, I don't know, there's how many hundreds of you are on there. I know I'm not going to relate to every single one of you guys. I get it. My style isn't your style. But you know what? I'm going to sleep like a baby, okay? Clean conscious. And here's the thing too. You reach out to me, even if I don't relate to you, I still love you and I'll still help you. So.
Check my mute again. It's true. You really do care. It comes across, Oscar. Okay, this is our last question before we wrap up. This is from Elisa. How do you find your ideal target companies?
Yeah, so your ideal target companies start off by remember the skill sets that I mentioned, you know, doing that exercise? Once you have that, also start looking at some job titles, industries that your skill sets will be are used for in those areas, and then start reaching out or going onto the websites of these companies to understand what it is that they do, what industry, what products or services. Oftentimes, some of these companies, they might have some videos on their website where, you know, the CEO is speaking or an executive is speaking. And again, it gives you a better feel for the company, the culture, et cetera, and so forth, where the company is going. So you're basically, what you're doing is that you're doing all this behind the scenes work to really profile a company and that opportunity that might be there. And you know what you stand for, what your values are. So then it could be like, oh, okay, I think this might be an opportunity to go after it. And once you've identified that, then that's when you start doing that, you know, networking and mutual connections, et cetera, to get an introduction and so forth.
Awesome. You are a wealth of information, Oscar. On behalf of UC Santa Cruz, I thank you for talking to us today, and I thank everyone else for joining us in this webinar. It was a pleasure to virtually connect with each of you today. We appreciate you making the time to be a part of the event and hope you gained some great advice for your job search. Please take note of other upcoming offerings for alumni and students should be on your screen right now. And again, this was recorded, so you can come back and check it out later or do a little screenshot right now. And don't hesitate to reach out to the Career Success Team at UC Santa Cruz or me in the Alumni Engagement Office if you need additional resources or support or have more questions. And please take a few minutes to fill out the survey that will be emailed to you after this event. It really will help us figure out what offerings to continue to provide to you all at this time. I'd like to thank Oscar one more time for his presentation today and his commitment to serving our students and alumni. Thank you all for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Cara. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care.